How many times have you explained yourself, only to be misunderstood? You tried to be honest. You opened up, shared your reasons, your intentions, your truth. You thought that if people understood your side of the story, they'd finally respect you, maybe even support you. But instead, they nodded without listening. They twisted your words. They questioned your motives. Worse, they used your explanations against you, like giving someone a map straight to your vulnerabilities. It happens everywhere. In friendships, at work, online, even with family. You try to justify your silence, explain your distance, defend your choices. You pour your energy into making them understand, but the more you talk, the more invisible you feel. Because here's the truth no one tells you. When you explain too much, you shrink. People don't listen to explanations, they listen to outcomes. Every time you try to prove something with words, you hand over your power. You say, "Please understand me." And without realizing it, you're kneeling, begging, hoping. And hope is a dangerous strategy. Somewhere deep down, you knew this. That voice inside the one you keep quiet, it's been telling you to stop talking, telling you to stop giving them pieces of yourself they never earned, telling you to disappear, to build in silence, to return only when the results are too loud to ignore. But you've been scared, afraid they'll forget you, afraid they'll judge your silence, afraid they'll write the wrong story about who you are. Let them. The ones who misunderstand you on purpose were never meant to understand you. The ones who need constant explanations will never respect action. And the ones who truly matter, they're watching what you do, not what you say. You don't need to defend your name. You don't need to narrate your comeback. You just need to stop explaining. Because silence backed by undeniable action, that's louder than anything you could ever say. But what if you never explained again? What if you disappeared and came back with results that silenced everyone? Centuries ago, in the heart of Florence, there lived a man who spoke in shadows. He didn't shout to be heard. He didn't beg to be understood. He simply observed, watched the powerful rise and fall, and then wrote what he saw in words that would shake the world for generations. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. He wasn't a king, nor a warrior. He held no throne, led no army, yet his presence echoes louder than the voices of rulers who once commanded empires. Not because he demanded respect, but because he understood something far more enduring than politics understood power itself. Not the polished version we dress up in speeches or diplomacy. Not the kind that smiles for cameras. The real kind. The cold, unfiltered, uncomfortable kind. The kind that does not explain itself. He was hated by many, misunderstood by most, but always feared. Machiavelli once wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But that sentence wasn't a command. It was a mirror. A reflection of what he saw men become when the stakes were survival, when loyalty faded and masks came off, when love wavered and fear remained. He lived in a time when words were dangerous and silence was armor. He saw leaders fall not because they were evil, but because they tried to be understood by people who only respected strength. And strength, to Machiavelli, was never in words, it was in movement. He watched as rulers talked themselves into ruin. He watched as soft hands explained, while iron fists simply acted. He saw that the man who speaks too much reveals his plans, while the man who holds his tongue moves the pieces. He understood that every word is a risk. Every explanation is a crack in the mask. So he wrote not to teach, but to expose, to pull back the curtain. He wasn't guiding kings. He was warning them. He wasn't glorifying cruelty. He was revealing the cost of pretending that power is ever gentle, In a world that praised noble intentions, Machiavelli wrote about results. In a world that begged for clarity, he whispered about control. And though centuries have passed, the world hasn't changed as much as we'd like to believe. People still confuse kindness for weakness. They still punish honesty. They still twist explanations into weapons. Machiavelli never told you to be cruel. He told you to be quiet, to see, to wait, to strike when it matters. Because in his world, and maybe in yours too, one who survives is not the one who is liked or loved or even right. It's the one who moves with purpose, speaks only when needed, and lets their actions roar. Power doesn't explain itself. It doesn't apologize. It doesn't overthink. It moves. It decides. And the world either adapts or gets left behind. The lion doesn't explain to the sheep why it hunts. It just does. No speech. No justification. No guilt. But you've spent your whole life explaining. You explain why you're distant, why you're ambitious, why you work late, why you said no, why you're changing. You explain your hunger, your drive, your silence, hoping they'll understand, hoping they'll see it from your side. But they don't. Instead, they call you arrogant, cold, difficult. They say you've changed. They say you owe them answers. They demand reasons. And maybe, for a while, you gave them what they wanted. You tried to soften your tone. You watered yourself down. You gave disclaimers before speaking your truth. You explained your fire to people drowning in rain. But fire doesn't need approval. It burns regardless. You see, the more you explain, the less they listen. The more you reveal, the more they dissect. And the more they dissect, the less they respect. Power doesn't chase clarity. It thrives in silence. Because silence forces people to observe, to wonder, to ask questions they'll never get answers to. That's where control lives, not in the noise, but in the absence of it. Think about the people who command a room. They don't talk the most. They don't rush to clarify. They wait. They measure. They speak like every word is a bullet, and they never waste a single one. You never forget what they say, because they only speak when it matters. Now compare that to those who explain endlessly, trying to cover every angle, to be liked, to be understood. Their words dissolve into background noise. No weight, no edge, no power. Machiavelli understood this. That power, real power, doesn't explain. It imposes, not through volume, but through presence. Not through words, but through results. You don't see a storm explain itself before it hits. You don't see the ocean justify its waves. They come. And everything in their path either moves or breaks. You've been trained to think explaining is noble, that it shows maturity, self-awareness, kindness. But in truth, most of the time, it's just fear in disguise. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being alone. But what's worse, being misunderstood for a moment, or being disrespected forever? You don't owe anyone a play-by-play of your evolution. You don't need to narrate your healing. You don't have to justify why you're stepping away, moving differently, demanding more. Because those who truly carry power know one thing. The moment you stop explaining, they start watching. And when they watch without answers, they assume. And when they assume, they overthink. And when they overthink, you win. This isn't cruelty, it's strategy. This isn't arrogance, it's control. Because every second you spend explaining yourself is a second not spent building, doing, executing. And every second you're not building, someone else is. Quietly, relentlessly. The most dangerous people in the world don't waste breath. They use action as language, results as punctuation, No justification, no over-explaining, no begging to be seen, just silence. Then presence. Then impact. That's power. And it never explains itself. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, for hesitation, for fear. But the truth is, silence, when chosen with intention, is the sharpest weapon in a strategist's arsenal. Machiavelli knew this. He lived in a world where alliances shifted like shadows, where words could get a man killed, and where the loudest voice in the room was rarely the one in charge. He studied leaders who lost everything because they said too much, too soon, to the wrong ears. In one of his most chilling observations, he described how rulers secured power not by revealing their plans, but by obscuring them. They didn't speak of loyalty, they tested it. They didn't announce their next move, they let others walk into it. The silence was not accidental, it was calculated, strategic. He once wrote, "The more you say, the more common you become, because words make you predictable. Every time you explain, you give away the map. Every time you speak too soon, you give others the advantage of anticipation." Now think, how many times have you felt the need to clarify, to justify, to prove your thinking out loud, and what came of it? Did it bring you closer to power? Or did it dilute your presence? You spoke to be understood. They listened to decode, to analyze, to judge. And the more you explained, the smaller your mystery became. We crave clarity, but we respect mystery. People don't chase what's available, they chase what's withheld. This is the art of strategic silence. Not muteness, not avoidance, but intentional quiet, crafted and timed. You don't speak because you have nothing to say. You remain silent because the moment you do speak, every word will land like thunder. Look at the ones who carry real power. They don't rush to fill silence. They let others fumble, overshare, expose themselves while they listen, calculate, wait. When Machiavelli observed the downfall of rulers, it was rarely because they were too cruel or too cold. It was because they revealed too much. They allowed others to anticipate their steps. True strength hides in the pause, the silence before a move, the quiet before a decision. It unnerves people, makes them guess, project, fear. And in that fear, they reveal themselves. They overreach. They miscalculate. They speak too much to fill the silence you left behind. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of power. It says, "I don't owe you my thoughts. I don't need to convince you. I am in control of what I give and what I withhold." In that restraint, there is domination. In that quiet, there is command. You've been told that silence is passive, that staying quiet means staying small, but Machiavelli saw the opposite. He saw that silence was a weapon used best by those who didn't need attention to survive. Because when you don't reveal your intentions, no one can prepare for them. And that is the essence of power. Not just what you do, but what you choose not to say before you do it. Strategic silence is not about being hidden. It's about being unreadable, unreachable, unshakable. And once you master that, the world leans in. Not because you asked it to, but because silence, your silence, has become the loudest thing in the room. There's a quiet tragedy in the way people chase understanding. You pour your thoughts into long texts. You defend yourself in arguments. You post captions explaining your silence, your pain, your growth. You craft the perfect message, hoping someone will finally get it. But they don't. Not really. Because when you explain too much, you kneel. You lower yourself not just in posture, but in power. You hand over the weight of your worth and ask others to approve it. Those who need to be understood are rarely respected. The world doesn't reward clarity, it rewards certainty. And explaining yourself is an act of uncertainty. It says, I'm not sure where I stand, so I need you to see me. I need your permission to be who I am. But permission is a leash. You see it everywhere. On social media, where people overshare in hopes of empathy, only to be mocked or ignored. In relationships, where one person explains themselves endlessly while the other barely listens. At work, where someone justifies every decision while the silent one gets promoted. The irony is cruel. The more you try to make them understand, the less they value you, because the act of explaining is tied to the fear of being misunderstood. And fear, no matter how dressed up, smells like weakness. They don't respect your struggle when you spell it out. They don't admire your effort when it's desperate. They don't care about your clarity if it costs your presence. There is a point where explaining becomes begging. Begging to be seen, to be accepted, to be forgiven. But those who carry real strength don't beg to be seen. They make themselves impossible to ignore, and not through noise, through impact. You've felt it, haven't you? That moment after explaining yourself to someone, only to feel smaller, lighter maybe, but emptied, as if something sacred was handed away for nothing in return. That's the cost of trying too hard to be understood. It makes you explain more, which makes them listen less. You become a story they feel entitled to rewrite. But Machiavelli would tell you this: the moment you stop explaining, you start reclaiming. Because what you don't say holds weight. Because when you walk away without a word, they start wondering. And wondering breeds respect in ways explanation never can. You don't owe the world an explanation for your evolution. You don't need to justify your silence, your standards, your pace. Because every time you explain, you lose a little edge. And edge is what keeps you untouchable. Power is not loud. It is selective. It speaks once, then moves. So from now on, when they ask, "Why did you change?" say nothing. When they question your silence, smile. When they demand a reason, walk. Because you're not here to be understood. You're here to be undeniable. Let your silence be the statement. Let your results be the reply. Let your actions be the explanation they'll never forget. And above all, never kneel to be seen. Stand so tall they have no choice but to look up. Action is often seen as truth, as the purest expression of who we are, but that's a comforting lie. Machiavelli would tell you otherwise. He would say that action is not a confession, it is not a cry for authenticity, it is a mask, a deliberate one, crafted not to reveal who you are, but to shape how others see you. You don't act to show who you are. You act to control what they think you are. That one truth changes everything. You see, the world isn't reacting to your intentions. It's reacting to your performance, your timing, your silence, your precision. When someone disappears and returns stronger, sharper, untouchable people don't ask questions. They rewrite the narrative in your favor. They assume you've been building, training, evolving. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. What matters is what they believe. And belief is everything. There's a reason the most powerful moves are made quietly. No warning, no build-up. Just one moment surgical, clean, undeniable. Think about a scene in a film. A man humiliated, dismissed, forgotten. He walks away without a word. Time passes. The screen goes dark. Then one day, without announcement, he returns. Not to speak, not to explain, but to win. No monologue, no revenge speech, just execution. And suddenly, everyone falls silent. That is what it means to wear action like a mask. It doesn't matter what you felt. What mattered was what you did. And even that what you did was a message, written in movement, shaped to provoke a specific response. This is the Machiavellian way. Power is perception. Action is design. Most people waste their actions proving something, proving they're kind, that they're good, that they're enough. But those who understand the deeper game, they act not to prove, but to position. You want to be seen as cold? Stay silent. You want to be seen as irreplaceable? Disappear, then return better. You want to be respected? Let results walk into the room before you do. The world believes what it sees, so show it what serves your power. Nothing more. The truth, it's irrelevant. It's invisible. What they think of you, that is the battlefield. You're not manipulating. You're surviving. You're not wearing a mask to hide. You're wearing it to lead. Let others waste time expressing themselves. You'll use that time to construct yourself, piece by piece, in silence, through action. And when you return, you won't need to say a word. They'll write the story for you. A story built on silence, shaped by precision, and sealed by awe. Because in the end, no one remembers what you meant to do. They remember what you did. And if you did it right, they remember it in silence. If any part of this found its way into your silence, sit with it. Let it echo. And when you're ready, act. You don't need to explain what it meant to you. You don't need to say anything at all. Just let your next move speak louder than any comment ever could. But if you feel like leaving a mark, drop your thoughts below, or don't. Let your actions reply. And if you're ready to move in silence, to rise without warning, to let the world feel your presence before hearing your name subscribe, the war has already begun.